pleasant good morning to everyone, and welcome once again to a special edition of the Coles Brown Show, broadcasting live from the beautiful city of Lorman, Mississippi, on the campus of Alcorn State University. The game of the week in the conference, Southern University at Alcorn State. Wow. Memories are flowing freely here. Last time I was at the stadium, fireworks were going off, and I was leaving, and Alcorn State was a 2018 SWAC football champions. With that being said, as just a show host, as an alum at Southern University, it was a humbling experience. You know, in life, you get good things that happen, not good things. That was one of the times that, wow, it's humbling. Alcorn State, the champions, and you congratulate them, and you go on and support Alcorn State going into the Celebration Bowl. 2018, 2019, a different year, maybe a different outcome, but Southern University, 4-3 overall, 3-0 in Southwestern Athletic Conference. Alcorn State, 5-2. 3-0 in conference play, Alcorn State in the Eastern Division. Before I introduce my guest, and I'm sure you'll probably guess right 9 out of 10 times or 10 out of 10 times. Coming up on today's show, going to have two guests, one being Brandon B.J. Jones, HBCU Game Day. He'll join me live from Birmingham, Alabama, the Magic City Classic going on, Alabama A&M and Alabama State. And Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network will join me in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good morning to you, Charles.
Good morning, Carlos. Welcome to the beautiful campus of Alcorn State University. As they say, where the water is cleaner, the air is sweeter, and you're just that much closer to a piece of heaven. That's what they say.
I like that thing, and can I say maybe God's country as well?
Yes, that's right. Someone has referred to Alcorn as well as God's country. So welcome to all of this this great environment, with the exception of the weather. It's a little chilly. The rain's going to move out, but it's going to be a breezy afternoon. Looks like the worst of the weather's over.
Well, we won't give continuous weather updates, but we will at least once an hour. So I think you've done a great job with talking about the weather for the time being. We'll give another update in hour number 2. So a huge matchup. Get your opening statement, feelings about this football game.
Well, I'm going to go back. I have to say, Carlos, I have to go back a little bit. I wasn't on last week. Of course, we know 2 weeks ago, Southern University beat Prairie View, and I predicted Prairie View would win the game.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Go ahead, eat a little crow.
Well, as a matter of fact, I talked with the catering director coming up here, and I looked at the menu, and I see there's a little crow on the buffet. So I have to eat a little crow this afternoon, and I'll start here at 10 o'clock. Southern got it done, and just going back a couple of weeks, for that game, because I predicted that Prairie View would win. Did Southern have enough offense and enough defense? And they just did. I mean, it was the kind of score that I thought. But Southern special teams were pretty good. Prairie View turning it over. They missed a field goal. I mean, Prairie View right now is kind of in disaster mode. I mean, that game the other night against Jackson State, we'll get into that. But, I think in this game, obviously the Braves control the East at this moment. Southern controls the West at this moment. Whoever wins this game, and if some other things happen on both sides of the ledger, on our side, if we win, and I think if Bama State beats A&M today in the Magic City, the Braves will really be in the driver's seat. But the Braves don't win that game and A&M wins, they got some work to do. On the other side, Southern University, if they win, they have complete control of the West. And you look further down the line, if Grambling loses to UAPB today, then clearly the Jaguars will be in the driver's seat. Some teams have kind of played themselves out of it. I think the Panthers did. They were kind of already 1 foot out the door anyway, but I think they probably played themselves down the steps and on the ground after the game the other night. But this game, the Braves are in the Jaguars' way. I mean, everything the Southern University Jaguars have accomplished the last year or so, they checked off their bucket list, winning the West, beating Grambling, exercising some of those demons, except one, beating Alcorn. And it hasn't happened in a few years. The last time was back in 2016, and Dawson Nobles was 1-9 against Alcorn. So that's one on their bucket list they'd like to get. And I think this Jaguar defense has been playing well of late. Running the football is going to be key. So I look forward to a pretty good football game. I think it's going to be a chess match throughout.
We'll give you all of the numbers, the statistical numbers, kind of paint the picture for you. You're absolutely right. Coach Odoms, 1-8 in his tenure against Alcorn State. 2016, I happened to be in this stadium, Lenore Artillery, 195 yards rushing. Footman threw for 300, ran for over 100, but it was the only victory in the series for us when Coach Odoms in his tenure. There's a saying, something like this: you win the week. I was talking before the show today with Dean Barnes. Always great to see him as well. You win the week, and that's the way you look at it. The loser of this ball game, by no shot are they in a lot of serious trouble, in my humble opinion, but they'll still have some work to do.
Right.
And so also the winner of this game, of course, they stay undefeated in the conference and they respect the division, but also it gives them kind of a leg up on hosting the Southwestern Athletic Conference Football Championship. And you saw last year what a home crowd can give a football team. Southern was represented very well in the championship game, but they would love to have that ball game in Mumford Stadium in Baton Rouge. Let's just be honest about it.
Absolutely.
I would love it. I love the drive coming up 61 here to Alcorn State, a beautiful campus. But if I don't see it again for a while, I'll be happy. So, but you understand the situation. Both programs are outstanding. The coaches, they're interesting in their respective selves. I look forward to it. It's the game of the week in the conference. We will talk about some other games, some other big games in the conference as well. We kind of talked about what's at stake today. I'm going to come back and ask you what concerns you. If you're Fred McNair and you talk to him, you host his radio show, and then I'll have my concerns with this ball game as far as Southern and Alcorn State. But let me do this. Last week there was a ball game played, and you heard the term a trap game used a lot. Do you think that was a trap game for Southern last week against Texas Southern?
Yes. Clearly, all the hype and talk about the Prairie View Southern game, and then you take on a Texas Southern team in Dallas a week later, a TSU team that's first-year head coach. Coach McKinney's doing a nice job, even though he hasn't won games. His team's playing better. They're close to winning some games, but they haven't. That was clearly a situation where emotionally you didn't bring it. You had some turnovers. And Texas Southern, if I'm not mistaken, had over 500 yards of offense in that game last week.
Yeah.
And so that's got to be a concern if you're Dawson Odoms, especially, last week, your defense, because you're hanging your hat on your defense right now in your running game, giving up that many yards against a TSU team that hadn't been scoring a bunch of points and getting a bunch of yards. So that was clearly a trap game. Southern University didn't bring it, but they found a way to win the game. And at this point, with about a month left in the regular season, none of these games are going to be blowouts by any stretch. If you can grind away a victory with 2 quarterbacks, 3 quarterbacks, like Grambling's been doing, a win is a win. As the late Davey Whitney always used to say, there's no such thing as a bad win. And at this point, yes, he used to say that all the time. And I think for Southern University, clearly a trap game, and there is no bad win at this point. A win is a win. You take it, you learn from it, and you move on, and here we are.
Well, if they would have lost that ball game, it would have definitely been a bad loss.
Yeah.
28-21. Recap quickly here. Southern with the win, 4-3 overall, 3-0 in divisional play. Rushing yards, Southern University 194 yards, Texas Southern 181. Now I will say this: after the game, found out that several players that contribute on defense did not play. They were banged up, but still, you got to play next man up. No excuse. Passing yards, Southern 295, Texas Southern 335. Total offense, Southern 489, one of their best outputs of the year. Texas Southern 516. Southern ran 77 plays, Texas Southern 79. Both teams averaged basically the same, 6.4 yards per play. Now, Glendon McDaniels, who was the offensive player of the week, and we're going to address that. You asked me this, what? You asked me about 3 or 4 times this past week, and I got a couple of other questions. Who's going to start, Carlos? Who's going to start? But Glendon McDaniels, 17 of 26, 252 yards, no interceptions, 3 touchdowns. Devon Ben, who I think you're fond of, 13 carries for 81 yards. Hunter Register, 5 receptions for 93 yards. Defensively, Benjamin Harris, 7 tackles, 3 solo, 4 assists, and Caleb Carter. Now, to one of the first big questions of today's show. Who do I think will start for Southern University? I'm going to say Skelton's going to start. Athletic quarterback who has struggled this year for some reason. There's a bunch of theories out there, opinions on why is this the case. But I think his athleticism, the field looks pretty good right now. It drains very well. It should not rain. I say should not rain during the game. Right now it's not raining as we speak. But if Skelton struggles at all, I think it'll be a quick hook. I look at Glendon McDaniel as, if I use a baseball analogy, a good middle relief pitcher and a closer.
Yeah.
With that being said, and I'm not taking a shot about your Cardinals. I'll just say that now, because it is very interesting. My team, the Cubs, didn't make it.
A shot deserved, by the way. We got swept right out of the stadium, so a shot well deserved. Yes.
Well, yeah, you said that, buddy. But that's who I think will start.
You know, I'm going to say this. You know, Skelton gave us fits in the championship game. When we played Southern down there, it was 20-3. You know, Southern was still trying to figure out who the quarterback was going to be at that point. Skelton obviously stepped up, and a couple of weeks later, they beat Prairie View 38-0, and Skelton was the guy. I think if McDaniel starts, considering that he's more of a pocket passer, if the Braves blitz and if they get home, it's going to be a tough game for McDaniel. I think the Braves have, if there's anything that gives the Braves trouble, it's running quarterbacks. You break containment, you blitz, you don't get home, that quarterback can take off, and that's what Skelton did in the championship game. So, albeit, my guess is my opinion. Dawson Odom said, you know, both guys will get reps. It'll be a game time decision. I think, in my opinion, you know, if I'm Southern, if I'm Dawson Odom, I'm starting Skelton. And to your point, I think his margin for error is minute. If he throws a bad pick or two, you've got to go with someone else, because the Braves offense has been prolific, been explosive, and Felix Harper's the man right now. So I think, to your point, I agree that Skelton probably should get the start, and we'll see if he gets off to a good start.
That'll be interesting. I think a very short hook. Now, hopefully, from my perspective, Skelton comes out and he is up to par. He's running. And I'm going to go to the offensive coordinator. I know they've got a game plan, and from what I've seen of Skelton this year, more so maybe than last year, you've got to get him off to a good start and good rhythm.
Yeah.
And I think it's very crucial that Coach Barrett, offensive coordinator, has a game plan that kind of gets him going early. I expect Alcorn to bring pressure. And it just seems like to me that maybe he's trying to, you know, go through his progressions, which he's supposed to do. But if he's able to make a big play with his legs, his athleticism, then he should do that. He's got to get off to a good start. And the offensive coordinator and the offensive coaches, hopefully they have a game plan to do such for Skelton. That's going to be crucial because, to your point, McDaniels, he's more of the traditional pocket passer. Now, the offensive line, if they can, give him quality protection, then he's been able to make the throws. We know that. So it's going to be a chess match, and it's going to be very interesting to see which team gets off to a good start offensively. But to me, that's going to be very important for Southern.
Both teams are going to try to run the football. You got to have a dual-edged sword on both sides. You got a two-headed monster. For the Braves, you have Nico Duffy and Deshaun Waller, and then on the Southern side, you have Ben and Jamar Washington. Washington's the guy that I think that worries me more because he's pretty good coming out of the backfield. You get him in space. They're going to line him up in a slot, so he's more of the dangerous dual threat in the backfield. This field holds up great when it's a ton of water, and we've had probably 3 inches of rain here in the last couple of days. I don't know if either team's going to be able to run the football in these type of conditions, but then the wind is picked up. You don't know if throwing the football is going to be a premium either. It just depends on how the wind's going to look 3.5 hours from now. But I think it's going to be a game of field position. I think special teams, turnovers, and kicking the football is going to be a premium too in this win. If Southern cannot run the football and they put it in McDaniel's hands to sling it all over the place, Braves get home, it's going to be tough. But I think Skelton brings enough of a threat with his feet to where you get the respect to where Southern might be able to catch the Braves a little bit off balance.
When we look at Alcorn State, and we're talking about Southern University, a balanced attack is always great. Who do you give the edge to as far as the most balanced? I know it's an obvious answer to this, and the question: which offense is the most balanced right now at this point?
Oh, I would think Alcorn.
I would agree.
And I think Southern University. If you go back over the years with Randall and Austin Howard, they were a throw first, run second ball club. But I think what has happened probably over the last year or so, I think Dawson Odums has realized that you've got to be able to run the football to keep teams honest. And Southern University has been able to run the football. 206 yards rushing per game. That's number 3 in the league, only behind Grambling and Prairie View. So they're running that football, and they're going to have to do that, I think, if they're going to be successful. And if you do that, if you can run the football and have people crowd the box, then you've got great receivers like Hunter Register that, you get him one-on-one. He's an FBS type receiver. You get him one-on-one in space with one of the corners or safeties, and he can make some plays. So I think, the Braves clearly, have been balanced, but Southern's going to have to find a way to get some productivity running the football if they're going to have a chance.
If you want to interact with the show today, you can do it a couple of ways. The Carlos Brown Show at gmail.com. Also, I have the Facebook page, The Carlos Brown Show. That's open. You can leave a question or comment there. I'll do my best to answer it and get involved with that. Also, Facebook Messenger. So if we kind of did like a little checklist, how when you watch the national shows and NFL, I kind of did that here on my notes. Advantage, and I don't have a check mark there. You know this right now, but I do have a pen here.
Right here.
Thank you, sir. and so we'll do this. Advantage. We're kind of looking inside the numbers. We just kind of talked about which offense is the balance. So would one say the advantage on offense goes to Alcorn or Southern? And we're going to try to be, I think we're both objective men.
Offensively, what Felix Harper has done has been spectacular. The Braves been able to run the football, albeit not quite as potent as it's been in years past. The last couple of games, over 200 yards rushing per game. So you look at the rushing attack, you look at what Felix Harper's done, and Felix slinging it all over the yard. You got Chris Blair, you got Pringle. Then you look at Southern University, you got Hunter Register, one of the top receivers, Ben Washington. I would, what's interesting to me, and it's kind of a tough decision. You look at what Felix Harper's doing right now, compared to, let's say, what Skelton could be doing, because remember, Skelton started towards the end of last year. you could say, could you make the case that Felix Harper, quarterback, is a little bit ahead of Southern's quarterbacks right now, even though he's only started a handful of games?
Well, we look at his efficiency, 185.
Yeah.
That's third, second in FCS.
Mm-hmm.
This Alcorn State, and this is just amazing to me. Yes, my name is Carlos Brown, and I'm about to say this. Would you have thought that this Alcorn State team would evolve within a season, not after a spring, not after a summer, evolve into a passing attack? And you just mentioned 200 yards rushing last couple of games. Well, that's still a lot, but it's not as much as 400 yards rushing.
Yeah.
You know that they've done a few times in this series.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the Braves an edge offensively. Check mark Alcorn, because the Braves, in the words of police departments, the Braves will have a little more weaponry. They have a little more weapons at their disposal than Southern University at this point. Southern's got, Ben, they've got Washington, they've got Register, and they're going to try to sling it all over the place. But I think the Braves with Chris Blair, with Pringle, with Juan Anthony, and then even in the backfield, you got Trey Turner, you got Waller, you got Nico Duffy. I mean, that's a lot to deal with. I would give Alcorn the edge offensively.
To be honest, I would have to go with that because they're more balanced. Southern rushing, one of the top rushing teams in the conference. You got Devon, Ben. Let's see if Nelson gets some carries. Jamar Washington, also Chris Chaney. He's been spectacular at times during the season.
He had a big kickoff return against Prairie View.
Yeah,
to start him off.
Yeah, they actually faked the reverse, and so you've seen him in the backfield. You've seen Skelton running the option. So I would give the check mark to Alcorn because of being balanced, throwing it and running. If Southern's passing attack, which hasn't been consistent, and it's on the lower end of the rankings in the conference, if it was a traditional Southern team that was balanced and throwing the ball, then you could even do it as an even.
And I'll say this about what Southern has morphed into now. I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, like we said, and if you go back throughout the course of history, the Austin Howards and the Eric Randalls and company, to slinging the ball all over the place, to Quinn and others, throughout the course of history. And now Southern's kind of morphed into more of a running team, number 3 in the league in rushing. That's not a bad thing. I think just with the talent, with the scheme, sometimes you have to morph into something different than what you've been. And I think Southern is going through that transition right now. The fans may think it's boring, it's slog, it's slow, but if it's effective, and you're looking at teams that are successful, like Alcorn has been, you've got to be able to run that football. And Southern University has been able to throw it for so many years to kind of set up the run. Now the Jaguars are kind of morphing into a running team to set up the pass, and they're continuing that progression. And that's not a bad thing.
No, but you do want consistency. You do, in my opinion, the goal is to be balanced. And, hey, what a perfect time to start today.
Yeah.
That's what I say. I mean, I think the weather won't be any factor. The field, as we look out on the field right now, we're up high in the press box. It looks outstanding.
Yeah, this field drains well. I mean, I've seen previous games in which we've had just downpour after downpour, and this field holds up. So I think the conditions, too, once teams get out here, will kind of dictate how slow or how fast of a pace. And I think this wind is going to be a little bit of a factor, too. And it just started probably in the last half hour. The wind has picked up. It'll be 10 to 15 miles an hour by kickoff and throughout the course of the game as this front moves out of here. But I think that'll also dictate what could happen as well, especially in the kicking game.
Is that, I'm from Baton Rouge now. Excuse me. I base everything by the river. I know north, west, east. To your left, is this what, north?
North, yeah.
It's a brisk wind blowing right now as I look at the Alcorn Brave flag blowing briskly here at Jack Spinks Kasem Stadium. Defense, now that's kind of interesting. Defense, what do you think about that? If someone was listening, or we asked them their opinion about who gets the check mark, or when I say check mark, the advantage defensively. I know the numbers Alcorn State, number one in scoring defense, Southern right behind, and we got notes everywhere. We just gotta look them up. Southern number two, giving up 24.4 points a game. Alcorn number one, 20.9. Southern number one run defense, giving up 122 yards. Alcorn number two. I'm going to say now one thing on the back end, as far as pass defense, Southern University is ninth, giving up 281 yards, but they make up for that in the run defense and interceptions. So how about, I'm going to say, I would give both a check mark. I'm going to say almost even.
Yeah, I was going to say it's about a wash on that one. You look at what we've done defensively. I mean, Prairie View came in here and scored 41 points, had 508 yards of offense and 4 turnovers. Even against Mississippi Valley, they were able to move the football somewhat. Granted, we had 5 turnovers in that game. Savannah State was able to get some things done. Both teams with 10 interceptions on the season. We only have 9 sacks going into this game. Now, last year, I think we had close to 50 sacks, and we won this award from the NCAA for the most sacks. So clearly not quite the same. We've lost some pieces there. Sterling Shippey was a big stalwart on our defense. He's playing at the next level. We had some guys banged up. But Southern University is a team that, they're going to give up a bunch. But when it gets to the red zone, that's where they kind of tighten up. You look at what they did against Prairie View, giving up 28 points. You look at the Texas Southern game. I think Southern's defense can wear down like the Braves defense is worn down at times. I'm going to say it's a push, as they say in the casino. That's a push. It's about even. And so I can't really give one over the other because both giving up a lot. They've been stingy at times. So I'm going to say it's about even.
Well, I think, it's shocking. We're agreeing, huh?
Yeah.
We're going to agree on something and disagree on others. Special teams now doesn't get talked about a lot. But the old saying is, we can win you a couple of games and lose you a couple of games. Who would you give the advantage to in that aspect?
Well, we're not really getting a lot of returns, and Fred McNair has even talked about that to the point where, because of the rules and special teams, you're not really getting a lot of kickoff return yardage. If you look at, Southern has been able to get more yards in terms of kickoff returns. The Jaguars right now are averaging 23.5 yards per kickoff return, and that's number 2 in the league. Only the Valley, only averaging 5 yards per punt return. So if you take a look at that, I think if you're going to give an edge, Southern University is going to try to create some stuff on special teams. I guarantee you there's probably going to be a little trickeration on special teams at some point in the game. It might be right off the bat just to get them going like they did against Prairie View.
Yeah.
We have
reverse.
Yeah, we haven't had a lot of returns. I think guys are getting away from balls, and I think we're just taking the ball where it is. And with this wind, it could be tricky as well. Prairie View tried to do a little special teams thing in late in the first half. Kid fumbled the ball. We got it and got late points, and that kind of stemmed momentum for us. I'm gonna say that Southern University just has a little bit more of an edge because they know and they have pretty good special teams guys. McCullough has been, special teams player of the week, very good kicker for us. Barajas has been pretty consistent. But I think Southern on punt and kickoff return units, they're going to try to create field position. And if they do that, then they'll have a good chance of winning this game. The Braves just have to be careful on their punt and kickoff coverages.
Extra points. We'll go back to the Prairie View game. Southern University blocked the punt. Had one block, but I'm going to do a slight edge. Yeah. I got special teams for Southern. So, offense, Alcorn, defense, even, special teams, Southern University. Just based on that assignment, I think you got a chance to have a pretty good game.
Yeah, I think the weather and the wind is going to determine a lot in terms of how these coaches are going to really deal with things. We'll see when these guys warm up. The field looks great, and once they start cutting and practice and warming up, we'll see. But I think for the Braves, clearly, and look, it's no secret. The Braves, in this 9 out of 10 streak that they've had, have been able to run the football. I know it's still in your gut, that 400-yard gut that that the Jaguars were hit with.
Watch it, Charles.
But it's it's absolutely a fact.
Not today.
It's a fact, Jack, as they say. If the Braves do that, they'll win the game. And I think again, if Southern University, if the Braves get to McDaniel, if he starts, if the Braves get home, McDaniel's going to be in trouble because he's going to put it up for grabs. Braves with 10 picks on the season. They can have a field day. However, I think Southern's going to try to slow the game down a little bit. And if they protect the football, both teams protect the football, it's going to be a lower scoring game, not the higher scoring games that we've seen in the past.
Now, an interesting comment because, run defense in this series, it is what it is. But this is 2019. Hopefully that will not be the case. I can't pull any hair out. None up here anymore. I'm bald. But with that being said, we also can look at two common opponents between Southern University and Alcorn State. One is the McNeese State game. Now, that's a game that Southern played McNeese the first game of the season. Alcorn came at game 3.
Yeah.
What do you take out of that? Kind of compare and contrast.
Well, of course, for us, that was the game that Noah Johnson went down. And, when that happens, when you lose your starting quarterback, even though it's next man up, as coaches say, coach speak, it did kind of throw us a little bit out of rhythm. And in that fourth quarter, we had a chance to win the game as Felix Harper got going in that fourth quarter. We scored a couple of touchdowns in about a 3-minute span to give us a chance to at least win the game. I think for Southern, clearly I think they had the turnovers in that first game. What was it, 34-28 was that game against McNeese?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one contrasting situation with Alcorn. Alcorn lost by 3, Southern by 6.
Yeah.
But Alcorn never led once in that football game, right? Southern did have the lead in that one, and of course 5 turnovers.
Yeah.
That did them in.
And Felix had a couple of interceptions as well, just trying to fit it into tight spaces. I think that was nerves, just trying to get him settled down, trying to make something happen. You kind of understand that, but against a good McNeese team on the road, that's kind of tough to overcome. But I don't take a whole lot out of that. It was early in the season. We've got another quarterback in there. Clearly game 1 for Southern, you catch a good team, you catch them early, you catch them in week 1. So, I think you got to give Southern credit for hanging tough. For us, we hung around and gave ourselves a chance in the fourth quarter when Felix Harper got hot. And, for all the talk, about Felix Harper, there were a lot of folks that didn't think Felix Harper could do this. And I told someone at a restaurant after the McNeese game, like, Felix Harper is now going to be our quarterback going forward because we've got 2 other quarterbacks behind Felix Harper that are young and could very well be. But Felix Harper, I thought, with what he did against McNeese, despite his struggles, solidified the job going forward. And he's gotten better and better and better. He had 389 throwing the football against Prairie View. But, the Braves got their running game going the last couple of games, which means that Felix Harper is not going to have to swing it all over the yard.
And the other common opponent, of course, Prairie View A&M.
Yeah.
I remember after that game, I had Alcorn supporters and fans were like, "I don't want to see Prairie View again."
Well,
that was tough.
You won't see Prairie View again.
Yeah. I understand the case.
Now, I've been quiet all morning. I've been quiet all morning. That he just kicked me while I was down then. Oh my God!
And we're gonna talk about that madness Thursday night in hour number 2.
Do we really have to talk about that?
Well, we got to talk a little bit about it.
I thought Charles was my homeboy.
I am, but you got to call a spade a spade.
Hey, amen, brother. A double spade. Hallelujah. Let me get out of here.
It was wild. It was wild. I dozed off on the game then I woke up and it was always some kind of action going on.
Yeah. Well, now, just to be honest about Prairie View, and our defensive coordinator, Cedric Thornton, and everyone in the league has respect for that guy because of what he's done defensively. Did it at Texas Southern, Bama State, and all that. He told me, he said that whole week of the Prairie View game, he did not get any sleep because he knew how explosive their offense was. And you just think about what they did here on this field. 508 yards of offense, 41 points, 4 turnovers. They don't turn it over. They have 600 yards of offense, 50 points, and we're playing for our lives here. So Dooley clearly has an offensive mindset, and Dooley clearly knows offense, and he can move pieces around defensively. He can score as many points as he needs. But in order to win, you got to be able to stop people. And Prairie View hasn't been able to do that all year long. As Jay Walker said, what defense? There is, because he called the game here. He said, what defense? There is, and that's something that Prairie View has to do better and get better, and Dooley's got to address that. If he's going to, and I hate to say it, Coach Dooley, I love you, but if you're going to survive at Prairie View, your defense has to get better, period. And special teams, because obviously they missed a field goal that could have sent into another overtime the other night. So there's some things he's got to work on, but clearly he's a great offensive mind. He gets the right pieces there. He can score as many points as he wants, but you got to stop people too, and Prairie View hasn't done that all year.
And with the Southern game, 34-28, missed opportunities.
Yep.
You can look at it that way.
They missed a field goal. I think Prairie View missed a short field goal.
Special teams blunder.
Yep.
Both teams had punt block.
Yep.
6-point victory for the Jaguars. Didn't give up as many points. No, they didn't get 500 total yards, but they were able to slow. I like to put it this way: slow them down, because some teams you just can't stop totally, but you want to kind of slow them down. So those were two common opponents. Maybe you can draw a parallel somewhat, a little bit, from those two games between those two institutions, that Southern and Alcorn State.
And I would say that if there's something that concerns me when it comes to the defensive side of it, what you just said, for Southern to hold Prairie View to 28 points, and then they come here and get 41, I think that says that Southern's defense might be a little better than we think. And that's the one thing that we'll have to look at today.
Well, my concerns are on the defensive standpoint, defensive side. I noticed against, we're harping on, we'll just say a game that Southern played. You rush 3 and you drop 8 in coverage. I don't think in today's game you're not going to be able to do that 80 to 90% of the time. I know there's down and distance. Let's say if it's 3rd and 10. Okay, I'm going to drop 8 and rush 3. But I think smart offensive coordinators and coaches, they're going to pick up on that. Then you're going to see a counter to that. I think here's my thing. You're going to have to give Harper some different looks. And you're also going to have to bring some pressure. You're going to have to get him. You cannot let him sit back and just go through his progressions. 1, 2, 3. He's got 10 seconds to throw the football. Hey, that's an awful lot to ask a DV to have to cover an offensive receiver.
Yeah.
So that's something we're going to have to watch for in this game. Rushing 3, dropping 8, no, sir. I don't think that works against Alcorn State on a consistent basis.
I've got 2 things with that. Number one, Felix Harper does go through his progressions, and he's going to hit the right guy at the right time. He's going to stay in the pocket. Now, Noah Johnson's a guy that will dip out of the pocket and will try to make things happen. Felix Harper is going to stay in that pocket, and he's going to hit his receivers. So you can call that, however way you want. But I also think that this Southern defense is the best defense that Felix Harper has seen so far to this point. I mean, if you just look at the games, Prairie View Valley, Savannah State, Alabama State, Alabama State defensively is okay, but I think Southern's defense is better. To this point, this is the best defense Felix Harper would have seen so far. So we'll see that chess match in Elliott Radden's offense versus Southern's defense and see, how that lines up.
Southern front 7. See how well they're going to perform today. That's going to be important. And then I'm big on this. Coaches have a game plan. have you put them in the best position that they can to be successful? I understand a lot of people say, well, coaches don't tackle. They don't drop passes. I understand that. But ultimately, it's going to go back to the coaching staff. So it's going to be some interesting chess matches going on in today's ball game.
Well, let me ask you this quick question. I know you got to look at your time, but you know what Dawson Odom said this week. He was asked about why that the Braves have had some success, and what Dawson Odom basically said is that the players have to take it amongst themselves to do something about it. Like, look, they beat us 9 out of 10 times, and he said.
Well, like he wasn't on the sideline. Come on. I mean, now it's shared. I know where you're going with this. It's shared responsibility.
Yeah. And so what he said was like, hey, if we're going to break this, let's do something about it. Let's get in this locker room and let's rally, let's huddle up, let's circle the wagons, and let's figure out what we can do to break this jinx. Because that's exactly what it's been, a jinx over the last 10 years. So,
So does he have any responsibility?
I'm sure he does.
I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. And but he did say that on the record. He did throw it out there, and he's putting it on the players. Like, hey, we're putting you in the best position to win this game. Now you got to execute. Can't have drop passes. Can't have block punts. Can't have untimely penalties. That's another factor too, by the way, in this game. We're averaging 9 penalties a game. And that clearly is going to be a huge factor. This wind is really picking up here going forward. But I think for this game, the little things. I think we're putting a lot of pressure on this game. Obviously the winner controls their division. And if other factors happen in the respective divisions, East-West, the races could be won in the next couple of weeks. That's kind of the way it's heading. We could have a boring last 2 weeks of the season if things kind of work themselves out. If the Braves handle their business, they could win the East in the next couple of weeks, I think, and Southern can win the West, especially if Grambling loses today at UAPB. So, we might not have much to talk about, but, whoever loses this game as well will definitely have some work to do going forward because we don't have anything easy. We got A&M. You don't know who's going to show up there. You got Grambling. It's hard to win in the hole. And, of course, Southern University's got some work if they don't win today. So I think that's what makes this game intriguing, and whoever wins this game obviously will have a leg up in hosting the championship game.
Yeah. Well, we have a listener that wanted to add a comment. He said Alcorn had 6 starters out on defense against Prairie View. Next man up?
Yep.
You note that?
Yep.
That's a fact?
Yep.
But still, I think if you ask Coach, the defense coordinator for Alcorn State,
Coach
Thornton, I bet you he would say he still was not comfortable giving up that much yardage.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's the way you have to look at it. And then a lot of times it's a bend, but don't break philosophy. I kind of see that with Coach Odom. The red zone scoring defense, Southern's one of the top in the conference. Now, I guess if you go up and down the field, that's not great. But when you get in the red zone, I call the man zone, then you stiffen up. You get real tough. And bend but don't break. But sometimes you just got to flat out get after people.
And the other thing too, you're talking about we've had a lot of players out. Nico Duffy was out, one of our top running backs. He was out. I look at the guys that didn't dress. There was one game, Bama State, in which we probably had 20 guys out, and whether the first, second team. But you don't hear the coaches talk about it though. When you talk to Coach Fred McNair about that, he doesn't even talk about it. He says next man up in spite of. That's his number one phrase. In spite of. So there are no excuses. Everybody goes through bumps and bruises. Everybody loses players. It's just how you adjust and adapt to it. And the Braves have done a really nice job with it. And that's why they're where they are.
Total offense, Alcorn State, number 5, 401 yards a game. Southern University, number 8, 367. A lot of that because the passing attack has been, anemic. Comparable to Southern University's offenses in the past. Let's see if that's changed. Let's see if they have some success today. That's one of the things that fans should look for in this ball game. I had a question before the show started. Is it going to be on ESPN3? As far as I know, you have to be. What did Dean Barnes say? You he had a saying, you have to, it's for your eyes in the stadium only. That, or if you listen on your mutual radio networks.
Exactly. And it's going to be, well, you can watch the game on our live stream, allcornsports.com. It is, you have to pay a couple of bucks for it, but it's definitely worth the $6.99 or $7.99, whatever it is. It's definitely worth it. You'll hear our audio. We'll be able to check in with our sideline guy, Cedric Tillman, and you'll be able to watch it as well. So it will be on our live stream. All of our home games are. This game not on ESPN3, by the way. Not this game anyway.
See, I'm a radio guy. I listen even on. Yeah, that's right.
I forgot about. Yeah, of course you can listen in on we're a part of the Open Mic Broadcast Network, and of course the Brave Sports Network. So you can check us out on a couple of different platforms, and it should be an entertaining game. I mean, this rivalry is just. Of course, this is Steve McNair Day, the late Steve Air to McNair.
And I know you got a story. I already got one. Yeah. Thanks to my best friend, security / what else we can say? He does everything.
Yeah.
He helps now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a Steelers fan.
Yeah. I mean, I've got so many McNair stories, but one of the ones, probably the biggest crowd I've seen at Mumford is when Alcorn played at Southern and Charlie Ward was in the stadium. Remember that?
Hey, you didn't look at my notes. That's what I had down there.
That was spectacular to see all the big shots and some of the best players in college football at that time there, 1993.
Yeah.
I mean, that was unbelievable. I mean, just that atmosphere. And then, of course, McNair broke the mark here against Southern University in front of a packed Jack Spinks Marino Castle Stadium. So these two teams have a lot of history. These two teams have a lot of special moments, individual and team. I remember one year here was 26-24. We played Southern, and we actually on an onside kick, one of our guys got the ball and was balling out of bounds, threw the ball back in bounds.
I remember that.
Southern recovered. They won the game. If we come down with the ball, even if the ball goes out of bounds, we get the ball. And one of our guys got it and threw it back in bounds. Southern got it, fell on it, won the game. I mean, so it's just been that type of atmosphere. Kadarius Gregory down here on this south end zone with a touchdown pass on a night game here. So just many memories that we've had with Southern. And of course, the late Steve Air to McNair was a part of all of that.
With a retired jersey. What's that? Halftime?
At halftime, yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of that, 1993, I had to make thanks to Michael Elam there for the research. In a middle-aged moment, I could kind of remember, but it wasn't a year. But then when he gave me the information, I was at the stadium. Yeah, Charlie Ward, Eric Randall, if I'm not mistaken, the quarterback. Kenyatta Sparks took a kickoff, and Alcorn's coach was Cardale
Jones.
What an interesting individual. I see his face right now in front of me. Here's a guy that was just very unique, quiet. Kenyatta Sparks just, what was said was Kenyatta went past him and went beep beep as he was returning about 100 yards. And Cardale just he always had the same expression on his face. Kendall Shello, who's now residing in Houston, he had a big game, and Eric Randall scores a touchdown, and he does the Heisman pose to Charlie Ward.
Yeah.
And Warwick Dunn was with him.
Yes.
Warwick Dunn, who does.
I forgot about Warwick Dunn.
Yeah, a lot of Habitat for Humanity, giving away homes that's furnished to single mothers. They were on the sideline. That must be Alcorn's football team that just came in. Is that them?
Yes, it is. What they do is, and it's kind of typical throughout the league, the team eats their pregame meal 4 hours before kickoff. So they ate their pregame meal at 10 at home, of course. Then they load up and they head over here, and they get off the bus and they head to the locker room. And the next hour, you'll see them out here warming up.
Yeah, it's getting closer. 2 p.m. start, or maybe a couple of minutes after Southern University at Alcorn State. The game of the week, both teams undefeated in conference play. Alcorn 3-0, representing the Eastern Division. Southern University 3-0, 4-3 overall, representing the Western Division. But as we go back to quickly We're talking about Aaron McNair, some of the memories, but that was a 47-31 victory by Southern University, 1993. Coach Pete Richardson's first year, and just an electric crowd. Boy, I was in the stands. That game, and in the end zone. Yep. Basically, they brought in temporary seating. Now, I got a question before the show started. They wanted to know, and I still don't see any. I don't think they're going to have them bringing out bleachers seats in the end zone.
No, they decided not to for this one, and everybody will just pack on in, and they usually sit on the hills. I don't know if that's going to happen with sitting on the wet grass, but. They're slowly coming in. I think a lot of folks checked out the weather the last couple of days to see how it was going to turn out. I think it might keep some people away, but if you look at the forecast now, I think the worst of the rain is pushing out. It's going to be windy, a little nippy, but it's football weather. If you like this kind of stuff, and Fred McNair says he loves this type of stuff. He loves this type of weather. So if you like this stuff, ground and pound, it's your type of game.
Ground and pound, wind conditions. Boy, I think it'll be a fast-paced game then.
Yeah.
If nobody's going to really throw it that much, but somehow I think expect the unexpected in this ball game. There was a question asked in local media in Baton Rouge, and several people emailed me, thecarlosbrownshow@gmail.com. What do you think about McDaniels and Skelton in the backfield at the same time? And it was asked to Coach Odoms, like he's gonna say if he's even thinking about that. I'm not saying that he is. I was thinking about it, but you may see some trickery, but that will be interesting. I just don't see it. Maybe down the line, who knows?
Yeah, I can see. Skelton under center and McDaniel catching a swing pass out in the flat, and he gets leveled and he's out of the game. And that's
well, no, I would see it the opposite way. McDaniel throwing to Skelton. Yeah.
Either way.
Now, one of the things people may think that Harper and McDaniel are not, they don't have any athleticism. They do.
Yeah.
They do, but their expertise is throwing the football.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't think you'll see it, but if I'm wrong about that, I'll talk about it next week. I will say I was wrong.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. I think, I did read the quote about it, but I don't see that happening. I think you'll see one or the other, and it's just a matter of who's going to start this game. I think we'll see, some of the questions being answered right away.
Yeah. Again, I think Skelton starts, but I could be wrong. I think you'll see both quarterbacks play unless Skelton comes out and has a hell of a game. He may go the distance. And you look at this Southern team, they had a couple of question marks. People were whispering. One, University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. You predicted Southern to win. You said this was a big moment. It was a conference opener for Southern University, and Pine Bluff, high explosive, offensive team, 31-7.
Right.
And then there were whispers. Some people against Prairie View, although they had some people very loud and said, "You're next." And that didn't happen.
Right.
So this defense, they give up some yardage. Bend but don't break. Hopefully they won't break totally today.
Well, I just think Southern's kind of morphed into something different than what we've seen over the years. I've just always thought of Southern as slinging it all over the yard, pretty good quarterback play, dynamic receivers, the Quinns of the world, the Austin Howards of the world, the Randalls of the world, scoring a ton of points. But now it seems like they've transformed a little bit more so into the running game and running the football, and that opens up a whole world in terms of throwing the football. And Southern's defense vastly improved from what we've seen in the past, even though I think the Braves have had Southern's number defensively based on the fact that they've just been able to run the football no matter who's back there, whether it's Arnold Walker, Anthony A-Train Williams, P.J. Simmons, DeLance Turner, Nico Duffy. It could be Carlos Brown back there. It could be Truck in the backfield. That's just a fact. I could probably put a helmet on and probably get a couple of yards in years past. But Southern's defense this year is much improved, and that's going to be something that we're going to have to watch today, because the Braves are at their best when they can run the football, averaging 4 or 5 yards a pop. That's when they're at their best.
Last point, then we'll get a timeout, and then we'll transition to hour number 2. Coach McNair kind of downplayed it. That's what he does. He's going to be even Steven. It's a big game because it's the next game.
Right.
And I think on the other side, kind of saying the same thing, but we know.
Yeah.
This is a big game. Yes, it's a big game because it's the next game, understandable, but also the implications. You win this game, it just sets you up real nicely.
Yep.
And that's the way you look at it. Yes, there's still more games to be played, unless there's a complete collapse. Let's just be honest, brutally honest.
Yeah.
Unless it's a complete collapse, the win of this game is in a good situation. And if you lose the game today, you're still in a good situation. Not as good if you win, but hey, it's a big game.
If you look at what Alcorn has coming up, they've got another bye next week. They've got A&M coming in here, and who knows? I mean, if the Braves win this game and A&M loses, the Braves are clearly in the driver's seat. I mean, Jackson State saved their bacon the other night. If Jackson State lost that game, then they would have a couple of losses. You got A&M if they lose. They got a couple of losses. Bama State's already behind the 8 ball. Of course, Valley's behind the 8 ball. Braves win this game, they're in complete control. But if they lose this game, you got a bye week. You're kind of ticked off because you lost to one of your top rivals. And then you have an A&M team that's not a rival. No one's expecting them to do much. And if they beat Bama State today, Coach Maynard's team is sitting right there and like, you know what? We come in here, we take care of business here, and then we got to go to Grambling. Then A&M, then Jackson State. I said that wrong, by the way. We go to Grambling in a couple of weeks, and then A&M. So, if we lose this game, then you got to go in the hole in 2 weeks. They call Eddie Robinson Memorial Stay in the Hole. You go down in the hole, and Grambling always plays at another level at home. You don't want a loss like this to carry over into Grambling in 2 weeks. So this is a huge game. And then, of course, Grambling's still hanging around. The Grambling fans want to take care of Pine Bluff today. Hope the Braves beat Southern, and then again the Bayou Classic could very well be again for the West. But there's some work to do there as well for Southern.
Work ahead, work for everybody. We're going to take a break here at this time, and when I come back, it'll be hour number 2. We'll kind of go around the Southwestern Athletic Conference at about 11:30ish. We'll hear from Brandon B.J. Jones of HBCU Game the Network. SWAC report coming up next. Some interesting ball games, and yes, we'll get a little bit more into that Thursday night. Okay,
do we have to?
Jackson State. Well, we've got a report on it, and we'll get some picks with the rest of the schedule in the conference. So we'll take a time out. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show, broadcasting live from Lorman, Mississippi, on the campus of Alcorn State University. We'll be back after this quick timeout.
As a dad, you'll probably spend years teaching your son how to hit a baseball, how to throw a tight spiral and hit a receiver, how to spring off a diving board and hit the water, how to hit a 1-wood and a 9-iron, how to hit the bullseye, how to hit the strike zone, hit a jump shot, hit the open man, hit the hockey net, and maybe the most challenging of all, how to hit the books. But the question is this: how much time will you spend teaching him what not to hit? Teach your son early and often that all violence against women is wrong. For tips on what to say, visit endabuse.org. Brought to you by the Family Violence Prevention Fund, the Waite Institute for Violence Prevention, the Ad Council, and this station.
Be the one with courage to fight child abuse.
All Texans must find the courage to fight child abuse.
Learn the signs and symptoms and report suspected abuse to appropriate authorities.
Learn and know these warning signs.
A child who undergoes changes in behavior, appetite, or routine. Watch for unexplained injuries, a change in academic performance, or loss of interest by a child in regular activities.
Trust your instincts. If you suspect something, do something.
If you believe a child is in an abusive situation, please call the Texas Abuse Hotline at 1-800-252-5400.
Be the one with courage. To find your local Children's Advocacy Center, visit onewithcourage.org.
On behalf of children, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of today's show, the Carlos Brown Show, broadcasting live from Lorman, Mississippi on the campus of Alcorn State University. The excitement is picking up a bit. A lot of movement is going on. Tailgating scene, you see purple and gold tents. You see blue tents, which represent Southern University. Look to my right, Alcorn State has entered the stadium after their pregame meal. Waiting for Southern University to show up. And that's kind of an exciting part because you see the buses coming in, you see ahead of the buses, usually a state trooper.
Yeah.
And so the Southern band, I'm sure, is on its way. If you're driving up, be careful. Right now, the weather condition is, I'll do the honors this time. Let me pull it up right quick on the Weather Channel app. We'll give it a second to give us some information. Right now, cloudy in Lorman, Mississippi. Temperature 59 degrees. It feels like 57. Wow, 2 degrees cooler. Huh? The low tonight 50 degrees. No rain as of right now. Now just a 10% chance. It was as high as 70%. Most of the rain was forecasted to pass through in the AM hours. So, I just got another question. I'm getting a lot of questions about the field condition. Charles, I say it's in excellent condition.
Yep. I mean, we've had in this field, the stadium opened up in 1992, and this field drains about as well as any. We've had 2 or 3 inches of rain here over the last 48 hours. Right now, it's hard to say because the teams have yet to come out and warm up, and we'll see that starting about noon. The Braves, as you mentioned, already are here. Southern University hasn't arrived yet. My guess is they'll probably pull up about noon, get off the bus and get dressed and get ready for their warm-ups at 1 o'clock. So I'm sure the Jaguars are probably somewhere up the road here close by.
Well, I could imagine myself giving a pregame speech in that locker room. Unbelievable. Blood pressure will have to be checked after that because I'm excited. You're emotional, but you can't get too emotional about a big game, but it's a big game. You recognize it. It's factual. It's a big game. Hopefully the game plan and execution will be to where it needs to be. And at the end of the day, if you win graciously. If you lose, at least you left it out on the field. And, hey, lack of execution maybe, but you want to be proud at least of the effort.
One of the things about the SWAC conference, we talked about McNair, the late Steve Airtu McNair back in the 90s. Just think about how the SWAC was back in the 90s compared to today, in which you had the SWAC tour, the football tour, and you had coaches talking smack, the late Eddie Robinson, Houston Markham, Pete Richardson would throw a little jab out there, Cardell Jones. I mean, and you look at it now, it's not that way anymore. I mean, coaches, and I think because of social media, these coaches making a ton of money and can't afford to have their foot put in their mouth, I think that you don't see that or you don't hear it as much, a lot of smack talk anymore in this conference. And I just don't think you have the personalities to do it now. I mean, teams are trying to win. Teams are trying to get to the next level in terms of being in contention. You just don't see that anymore. And, back in the day when it was Jackson State, when it was Southern, when it was Grambling, of course we got there with Steve. You had some of that, but now you don't. I mean, Dawson Odom's class guy. I mean, and I've said this about him, a contract extension, well-deserved. And I don't look at what he's done on the field. I just look at more so what he did off the field during the dark times, which was recently when the team was going through the whole player certification issues. He stood tall, dealt with it, kept the team going forward. Even though they didn't win as much as fans would like, I think he handled himself with class. He handled the program, and therefore he turned it around. He stuck with the program. He stayed with it. So therefore, this is where Southern is right now, and they're looking good with a lot of young talent. So, I mean, you got to give Dawson Odoms credit, and then Fred McNair taking over for Jay Hobson. Fred doesn't talk a whole bunch either. I mean, you couldn't tell whether we were playing, McNeese or Southern. He's the same Fred McNair, regardless of the opponent. And I think that's very comforting for the players and everybody around the program.
Yeah, watch out for social media these days. As far as sports talk, radio, that's a big change. When you first got into it, you didn't have the interaction. Now with Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat and all those different mediums, boy, you can really utilize it to your advantage, but it also can hurt you if you're not careful.
And Fred McNair told his team probably 3 weeks ago after one of the practices, he said, hey, watch it on social media. And obviously the coaches are following these players, and they're paying attention to what's being said and put out there on social media. So Fred McNair and the coaches are very aware of what's happening in that world.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, it was a light, as we go around the conference, it was a light schedule last week. We'll start off on October 19th, Prairie View A&M over Virginia Lynchburg, 51-0. It was Jackson State in their overtime victory over Mississippi Valley State, 31-20, and of course Southern over Texas Southern, 28-21. Out of those games, Prairie View, you expected that game to go the way that it did. Just a good homecoming opponent. Maybe some would say that, some will not. But they took care of business. Jackson State, it looked bleak for them, down 21-0 in that game. And then they come back and win it in overtime. And then Southern, as you stated, a trap game. Although some coaches don't believe in that term, a trap game. You come out and you play the opponent you have every week, respect them. But I think most people would have said, Carlos, it was a trap game.
Easier said than done. It's easy to talk about that, but Southern Prairie View in football is a huge rivalry, a huge deal. Two high-powered offenses, and considering the way it went down, it was at Mumford, exciting game, and then you take on a TSU team that has not had a lot of success. Yes, it could very well be a trap game, and it almost was, but Southern found a way.
Yeah, I think they were looking just a little bit ahead.
Absolutely.
And then Thursday night. That was a Thursday night game on ESPNU. It was Jackson State in two overtimes defeated Prairie View A&M 38-35. This game had some of everything. Not all good, and we'll hear from Dr. Prince in a second. But I'm just going to ask him, don't burn up the airways because he was really, I'm sure, upset about it. But there were altercations before the game, a lot of jawing going on during the game. And to me, the game was marred by a lot of penalties. I had to turn it a few times.
Yeah.
Every time there was a play made, whoop, there's a flag. It just, I didn't like that part.
Yeah.
I didn't. So, but Jackson State, 38-35, two overtimes. Jackson State able to block a field goal attempt, and they come away with the victory. And I think I posted something about Jackson State still breathing.
Yep, they still have a pulse.
2 weeks in a row, still, yeah.
They still have a pulse. Two games that very well you could have stuck a fork in them, they would have been done, and they find a way. And that's kind of troubling if you're playing them coming up. I mean, they still have Southern coming up. They still have Alabama A&M coming up. Of course, we go to Jackson next month. So Jackson has proven that, you could knock them down, but you can't knock them out. But, nonetheless, that game was at Prairie View. And it was a bad loss for Prairie View. I mean, I give Jackson all the kudos, but that can't happen. I'm sorry. That cannot happen on national television. You know, you come out flying, you come out doing all the things you need to do, and then you can't kick a field goal, you know, from the 1-inch line, you know, and look, in overtime, you get the ball at the 20-yard line going in, you kick a field goal, and you send it to another overtime. I mean, clearly it's another situation where Prairie View's defense just cannot get off the field. And going forward, that's got to be cleaned up. For next year, it's got to be cleaned up. And, you know, again, another good start for Prairie View to start the season, but then they fade. And, you know, you hit them in the mouth a couple of times, they don't get off the deck. And, you know, it'll be interesting to see how Prairie View plays going forward, because they're not going to win the West. It's all about pride right now. You got Tucker and Morton that are seniors. It's going to be interesting to see how that offense is going to look going forward, and even going forward the rest of this season. I'm anxious to see if they're going to still play with the heart and pride and desire, you know, to win some games. Because right now, I mean, Dooley's seat is not hot. It's just year 2. But I think it's gotten a little bit warmer, though. Clearly it's gotten a little warmer.
That's a perfect way to segue into Dr. Prince. Coach Dooley, is he officially on the hot seat, in your opinion?
Yes.
In year 2?
Yes.
Well, Dr. Prince, Charles Edmond, I was sitting down and just kind of going over something. 0-2 against Alcorn, 0-2 against Southern, and 0-2 against Jackson State, 2-0 against Grambling State University.
Yeah.
And let's take a note of that. This is a down Grambling State. Let's be honest. The Grambling has not been the Grambling of history the past 2 seasons. Will we agree with that?
I would agree.
Yeah.
Okay. So the quality of wins. Finish your report, Charles. Finish your report. I mean, Carlos, finish your report.
Well, no, the question you just answered, you said yes, officially on the hot seat.
Yes.
So, with that being said, and by the way, you can hear a daily show / podcast of Dr. Michael Prince on the network, Open Mic Broadcast Network. I got a chance to listen to it, and some of the key words you heard were undisciplined, expectations, with Prairie View, mediocre. I think, you could tell me if I'm wrong, I would say 90% of the Prairie View A&M alums and supporters, they're not happy campus right now.
95%.
Oh, okay. About 5%. It's a tough situation. And man, some of the things that you've seen this year, there were altercations, you know, on the field. There were almost altercations on another couple of incidents in Baton Rouge. The bottom line is, it comes down to X's and O's. I know, but I would think he's on the hot seat. I really do now.
He really is. And let's look at something. And Charles, you were so on point talking about how Odoms handled the entire situation, more importantly off the field than on the field, dealing with Southern. You so accurately hit that on the head. And Carlos, you know how I feel about Dawson Odom on and off the field. When he refers in his Tuesday press conference about the difference between them winning and losing against Prairie View, and he said it, not me, he said it. When you look at the ledger, and there are 12 penalties on one side versus 4 penalties on the other side, we won the battle of discipline. He said that, not me. And discipline has been the common denominator for this program since its conception under Dooley. Every week on the Southwestern Athletic Conference teleconference, I asked the question, what are we doing to address the disciplinary challenges. And every week I was told there are no disciplinary challenges. Our team fights hard for 60 minutes, but we come up short. That's not going to cut it. That's not going to cut it. And let's not talk about our defensive coordinator getting the personal foul. The undiscipline and the rudeness of how you enter in the stadium that was being brought up by other coaches. Not me, other coaches. See, you're going beyond you. You represent that university and what that university stands for. And I can deal with losing. I can deal with getting beat. But it's how you're doing it that is totally unacceptable to me.
I hear you. Point well taken. No, I thought you were going to say
I mean, I understand that, and I agree with that. And on the penalties, look, all corners had issues the last couple of years with penalties, and Coach McNair gets asked, we're averaging 9 penalties a game. And there were some times in which our fans are asking about the same thing, about the discipline. And
but
every coach, it's just coach speak. They're going to address it. They're going to address it in-house and all that. I think, that's a concern. But I'm just from a distance, from the way I'm looking at it right now at Prairie View, you have an interim athletic director. Fred Washington left or was let go. The coach, the AD that hired Dooley is no longer there. I think you cannot. And this, I'm just looking at it from the professional perspective. If you want to give your football coach a chance, it doesn't matter who it is. It could be me or you or Dooley or whomever. In this conference, at least just throughout the history, you don't get rid of a coach in 2 years unless it's just some flagrant, obscene stuff that's happened in which you feel like you have to make a change right now. I think Dooley, obviously, Prairie View hasn't won the big games that mattered, beating the Southerns, beating the Alcorns. Yes, he's beaten Grambling a couple of times, yeah. But the games in which it really mattered the most, he has struggled. But to make a change after 2 years, I think doesn't, for me personally, and I don't care what program it is, whether it's Prairie View or even FBS programs, I don't get it. I don't understand it because now you got a whole nother class. You got, players can transfer, and you got a whole bunch of confusion and a whole bunch of issues. I think Dooley needs one more year after this, and then you can take 2 or 3 steps back and evaluate. But right now, you're not even through year 2. Let's give them another year and see if the program after that is pointed in the right direction. If not, and I don't know what kind of deal does he have. Does he have a 3-year deal, a 4-year deal? What? He has a 3-year deal.
It's a 4-year deal, sir.
It's a 4. Oh, boy.
Okay. And might I interject for a moment, please?
Oh, that's right. Prairie and Texas Southern believe in giving
number one. I want it to be perfectly clear to those that are listening. I did not say get rid of Dooley. What I said, something's got to change.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whether it be your defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
We don't have an offensive coordinator. Maybe we need to get an offensive coordinator. Okay. How about making some type of improvement and adjustments? If you can't do it from week to week, at least during the game. In the overtime loss to Jackson State, Jackson State ran 2 plays. They ran 10 plays and 9 of them were runs. You got to adjust at some time. Now, if warranted that he needs to be replaced, then so be it. But something has to change.
I guarantee you, I can almost guarantee you, if you follow coaches and the ebbs and flows of it, I guarantee you that staff will be changed probably in a major way at the end of the season. I guarantee you that. And because, as a head coach, you understand you only have a certain shelf life in places. And Dooley knows. He's been around the league. He's been around the game long enough to know that this can't stay status quo. So, to your point, I do think there will be some changes made probably right after the season is over with. And if that's done, we'll see how it goes from there. first couple of years, you won some games, but you lost the ones that have really mattered the most. He's got to turn that around the next 2 years if he's got a 4-year deal. Then you can take a look at it after that. But I agree with you. I do think there will be some changes made. I think it's not going to happen now. I think at the end of the year, I think you will see that, and I do think you'll see some new, fresh faces on the sidelines there.
Well, Charles, answer this for me, please. What games of significance have we won in the last 2 years?
Well, you beat Grambling.
Grambling has not been Grambling.
Well, I mean, I get that, but I think in the grand scheme of things, I think administrations don't necessarily look at it that way.
Okay. Well, we'll give you credit for that.
Texas Southern number one.
Oh, hold up, Charles.
That's a rival.
Charles.
Well, hey,
no, that's a rival.
Exactly.
Okay, go ahead. Finish.
I think that the seat would be even hotter if he hadn't beaten Texas Southern these first 2 years, but he has, and that keeps people quiet. Just like Alabama State and A&M today. I talk with Bama State fans, and they say all that matters is the Magic City. Carlos, I've told you this, and I've said I've talked to A&M fans, and they say the same thing. All that matters is the Magic City. Of course, there's 6 other games, but that's what helps. And believe it or not, I do believe that at those 2 institutions in football, what matters is the Magic City. But to answer your question, Dooley did. Prairie View's beaten Texas Southern. They've beaten Grambling. No, they haven't beaten Southern. No, they have not beaten Alcorn, albeit,
they have not beaten Jackson.
They have not beaten Jackson. So I do think there's some work to do. I just think after 2 years, I think after next year, you got to see where the program is. And if it's a 4-year deal, that means money-wise, you're committed for 4 years, unless you're going to buy them out before then you're paying a couple of coaches. I think 4 years is a good enough period of time to see where that program is under that leadership. And if it's going sideways or going south, then you know what you need to do after 4 years. So I think Dooley's a great offensive mind. I think the defense needs a whole lot of work. Special teams needs a whole lot of work. And if he wants to win those games that he hasn't won, those areas have to be cleaned up.
Well, I've been on record for saying, and I'm going to continue, I can't be upset with Dooley accepting the pay that was offered to him. That, hey, take the money and run. But as an administrative move, you have to be due diligent. See, what happens is, and I can only speak in the case of Prairie View, I can speculate on the case of perhaps Texas Southern. When you issue out that kind of money, you're putting yourself in a twilight zone, if you would. Because the next person that comes along, let's say if it's a person that has head coaching experience. Well, if you paid the guy this amount, I can't come for no less than this amount. And then you bring another rookie coach in. They say, well, the last guy you gave this amount, I'm going to have to get at least this amount to start off with. So you put yourself in a difficult situation to build the stability and the longevity that you need for not just a happy to be there program, but a program of significance.
Well, I will respond to that with, that's just the cost of doing business.
Okay.
I think
sometime in the cost of doing business, you have to 86 things and said, I made a mistake, turn the page and move on. That's the cost of doing business.
Right. I mean, if that person isn't the right fit, if that person doesn't win, then you move on. But the next coach, and just the way it's done in college sports today, even at the SWAC level, in most cases, the next coach is probably going to make a couple of dollars more than the previous coach. And even though the next coach might not have the same experience or the same resume, but if that's who you want, if that's who you really want, and unless that coach asks for an outrageous amount, I mean, McKinney's making, almost 4, over 3.
Blasphemy.
The next head coach at Texas Southern is probably going to make that, or maybe a couple of pennies more than that, if McKinney doesn't make it in 3 or 4 years. So I think that's just the cost of doing business there, and it's unfortunate, and I know it draws a lot of energy, it draws some jealousy, but I think it's just, I mean, look at Dabo Swinney making $9 million a year. Some would say he's grossly overpaid, but you see what he's done. Nick Saban.
His record is not 3-5 neither.
Oh, I get that, but I'm just saying that, I just think at any level in coaching, I mean, we can debate whether or not coaches are worth the money that they're making, but I think at the same time, if these schools have the money to pay them, they're going to pay them.
Okay, and with that being said, and if I'm going to pay the money, I expect a better return from my money.
But how soon, though? I mean,
as soon as you walk through the threshold.
Well, it's not. I just think that in college coaching today, it just doesn't. Unless you're just a magical figure as a football coach that's won national championships at the highest level, that you can attract the talent right away, like a Saban, like a Dabo Swinney, Ed Orgeron, or whatever the case.
Charles.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen
I
that
know
quickly.
When Hopkins became head coach at Alcorn, how long did it take him to win the championship?
It took a couple of years.
2 years, to be exact, right?
But that's
hold.
I agree.
When Fred McNair took over as head coach, how long did it take him to win the championship?
I mean, he picked right up.
2 years.
He was already in the program.
He was already in the program. Was Hopkins in the program?
No, he wasn't.
Oh, okay. So my point is, when you're hired, when you accept the job, you knew what was going to be required to turn the program around, whether it was up or down. You walked into that situation with your eyes wide open. And if you're given what you've been asked for to turn the program around, don't give me no excuses. Don't create a smokescreen. Deal with it. And that's the bottom line. To whom much is given, much is required.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And I do think, though, that, I think to your point, and I do think there'll be some changes in that program. And I think year 3, he's got to get over the hump of beating Southern. And, of course, we're going to go to Prairie View next year. And, of course, I haven't seen the master schedule, what comes on and what comes off. So I don't even know if we're playing Prairie View next year.
Yeah, that's something that we'll have to see. Southern University has entered the building, folks. They look like they're in a nice mood, don't they? They're dressed in their blue and white windsuits.
Did they stay in Natchez, or did they just drive up the day of?
That's a good question. I know many coaches I've talked to, they go to Vicksburg if they're going to stay overnight. It could be a turnaround trip. I'm not sure. Let me do this before I get to this next time out. Then we'll hear from Brandon B.J. Jones. Today's schedule looks like this. Southern, of course, at Alcorn, 2 p.m. Texas Southern at Mississippi Valley State. Can Texas Southern get a win, their first win of the season? The Magic City Classic at 2:30 p.m. Alabama State and Alabama A&M. The Grambling State at Arkansas Pine Bluff. That's at 3 p.m. So some big games on the schedule in the conference. We're going to take a timeout. And when I come back, Brandon B.J. Jones of HBCU Game Day. And then we'll kind of get our predictions. Then we'll kind of wrap up predictions in the conference, that is. Then we'll kind of wrap up this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com, broadcasting live from the campus of Alcorn State University in Lorman, Mississippi. We'll be right back after this quick timeout.
Serving the community through faith and athletics. The Open Mic Broadcast Network.
One voice. It can get the point across, but it only carries so far. Add a voice. It's richer, louder, but that has limits too. Add a third voice. It's even more powerful. Add another, and many, many more. And we are stronger than ever. That's the power of a community coalition. They help community groups, faith groups, civic organizations, PTAs, employers, and many others in your community organize their resources and focus them where they're needed most, like fighting to keep kids away from drugs. Ask a group that you belong to if they should belong to a community coalition. It's easy to get involved. Visit helpyourcommunity.org and they'll tell you exactly how your group can help. That's helpyourcommunity.org, because you get more when we get together. Brought to you by the Office of National Drug Control Policy and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com, broadcasting live on the campus of Alcorn State University in Lorman, Mississippi. As we do each week, I'm going to visit now with Brandon B.J. Jones of HBCU Game Day. Brandon is enjoying himself in Birmingham, Alabama. Brandon, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Carlos. How's it going?
Well, a big one here. I'm doing fine. A big one here on the reservation, and also a big game where you're at.
Yes, I am in my hometown of Birmingham, Alabama, for the 78th renewal of the Magic City Classic between Alabama State and Alabama A&M. And this one has a old school feel to it. This is the first time in a few years that these two have actually had something to play for when they've met. So it has an old school feel to it.
Old school feel, a lot riding on this ball game in the Magic City Classic, just like here in Lorman, Mississippi. Get your thoughts on Southern and Alcorn State. Then we'll kind of transition through the rest of the conference, and then we'll take a look quickly in the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. And boy, last Sunday, FAMU and North Carolina A&T. Yeah. Get your thoughts on that. Can't we just get along? I know it's a collision sport. The hormones are flying, but man, too many doggone fight. I see more fights before the game and less hitting during the game. Tell me what's going on with that. But go ahead, Brandon.
I don't know, man. If you check that game out, man, North Carolina A&T, Florida A&M, I mean, it started, pregame, a little, pushing and shoving, and, that carried on into, halftime, and, FAMU was able to pull it off. North Carolina A&T kind of showed some cracks, in my opinion. I always say this, is that you cannot win with an undisciplined football team. And some of the things that they did a week ago was undisciplined. It's uncharacteristic of North Carolina A&T. So you really have to check those things, because those small things will snowball into bigger things if you're not comfortable. I mean, if you're not careful. But
word for this week, undisciplined.
But
the conferences.
Yeah, but you really got to give credit to FAMU. What they've done, they've beaten Southern. They've now they've beaten North Carolina A&T. They've beaten South Carolina State on the road. FAMU is earning it right now, and the way that they're doing, you just have to be impressed and happy with Coach Willie Simmons and his squad.
Well, the Southern alum is coming out of me right now. 97-yard drive, correct? Southern was 97 yards. Southern was a 97-yard drive defensively. They could hold FAMU. They defeat FAMU, but they didn't. They didn't get it done. And much kudos and props to FAMU. They're getting it done. The sad thing is they're not going to be able to represent the conference if they win it, because of the situation, being ineligible to participate. But it still doesn't negate a very, very good season so far, Brandon.
Yes. I mean, if you're a FAMU fan, you're happy and you're upset all at the same time. And the reason being is, if you're a Rattler, you've been waiting to have a season like this for over a decade. Now it looks like you're about to have that season where you accomplish all of your goals and you have nothing to show for it because of the sanctions. I mean, having the FAMU people suffered enough, you know. But, you know, it looks like they really have it going down there. And they really, outside of Ryan Staley, they actually have a young football team. So this doesn't look like a fly-by-night type situation for FAMU.
Interesting. At a point where the best is yet to come. Sounds like what you're saying with Florida A&M program. Back to the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Your thoughts on the game of the week in the Southwestern Athletic Conference?
Oh man, if you're Southern, we talk about the Alcorn monkey on your back. That monkey has grown to the size of a 1,400-pound gorilla. But if you're Southern, you got to go in. You got to take care of business. The turnovers has killed Southern in this game. Uncharacteristic turnovers, and the biggest thing, if you look at this Southern Alcorn rivalry, usually the team who runs the football the best wins the football game. So whichever those defenses can stop the run, slow the run down, that's the team that's going to win it. That's the team that you should roll with, you know, at 2 o'clock once this thing kicks off.
Wow. Charles, we've given some statistics on run defense and who runs the ball well. It seems like Southern's in a better situation compared to some games in the past coming into this ball game. But what Brandon is saying, we'll have to make a note of that, and we'll watch for that. It's going to be a big one in Lorman, Mississippi. The winner really is going to be in a comfortable position. I'll put it that way. Both in terms of maybe hosting, but you got to, you know, win each week. Still some football games left to be played. In the Magic City Class of the game that you're in, going to be attending, who do you like in that ball game?
I like Alabama State. I think that Alabama State has performed the best this year when you compare those two football teams. I think with Alabama A&M, you still don't know what you have and what you don't have. But A&M has won 4 games. But if you look at the record of the teams that they've beaten, those teams have a combined record of 4-22.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and the teams that they've lost to, you go back to Samford, you go back to Grambling, and then the ball game that they dropped against Arkansas Pine Bluff. They've dropped to the decent team, and they beat the teams who are subpar. So if they can win this ball game, this will be their best win on the season. But I think Alabama State's going to be too much for them. I think defensively, Alabama State they play a lot better defensively, and that offensive line for Alabama A&M, the defensive line for Alabama State is opportunistic. They get to the quarterback. That's not a good thing when your offensive line struggles keeping your quarterback upright. So I give the edge to Alabama State. But this is the Magic City Classic, and I've seen classics in the past where the best team didn't always win. So you can throw everything out today. Anytime these two meet in Birmingham, you never know what might happen. But if I have to give an edge, they'll be to the Hornets of Alabama State.
DJ Jones, this is Charles Edmond. How you doing?
Man, how you doing, Charles?
I got a chance to meet you for the first time when we went to Montgomery a couple of weeks ago. I see all the good stuff that you're doing on the video platforms and on social media. Got a question for you about who's going to start at quarterback today for Bama State. I know they used their third-string quarterback beat Jackson State a couple of weeks ago. Who's going to start at quarterback? I know Davis went down in the Alcorn game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the young man from that played the Jackson State game, the transfer from Mississippi Valley. Coach Hill-Ely, he was kind of tight-lipped about it. He didn't give too much. It looks like it'll probably be him. But if you're Alabama State, man, you got to think that they're on quarterback number 3. Yep. And the offense is still, moving along. I mean, that's impressive within itself. But if I had to be a guessing man, I would guess that it would be the young man who played the ball game against Jackson State.
It's interesting. I'm listening to BJ, and we've talked about it. Alabama A&M. You mentioned that which Alabama A&M team is going to show up. They're like Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, and I agree with BJ. I think Alabama State has enough. Albeit, I think you may be leaning toward Alabama A&M, huh, Joe?
Oh yeah, I have A&M winning this game. I mean, that's why I was asking the question. Yes, they are down to their number 3 quarterback. I just don't know offensively. And what I saw from Bama State, the cohesion running the football, they really couldn't get that done. I think A&M, to me, seems to be the better football team, albeit the Magic City Classic, the best team doesn't always win. And Alabama A&M, you don't know which team's going to show up. I mean, they lost to Grambling in a tight game. The games that they've won, that they've lost, the games that I thought they would lose, they would win. And they know, I think, Bama State's on the outside looking in, but I also think for A&M, they know that Alcorn's coming up here in a few weeks, and they're pulling for Southern today because they can stay in the race.
I just think one team has been very inconsistent, albeit from a talent standpoint, they're probably better, Alabama A&M, minus, some weaknesses. For the most part, Alabama State, they are who we thought they were going to be, minus some injuries. I just think Alabama State has been a little bit more consistent.
Yeah.
But just my opinion, I got Alabama State in that one. And then Grambling State at Arkansas Pine Bluff. That's another big one.
That game is huge. That game is huge because if the Arkansas Pine Bluff, you win this one, it keeps you in the race. And you're a Southern loss away from being, tied for first place. If you win that one today. If your Arkansas Pine Bluff lose, then you're thrown 2 games behind. And if you're Grambling and you lose, I mean, you're pretty much done. I mean, you have to win out and rely on a lot of help. So the winner of this game today, hope still remains. The loser is pretty much done. And I think that's the same case that you have here in Birmingham. Winner still has a little hope. Loser, done.
For me, I'm looking at this Grambling defense versus the high-scoring UAPB offense. And where did that come from? I mean, Cedric Thomas, their second-year head coach, is a defensive-minded coach, and this team is scoring a lot of points. Just take the Southern game off the table. I mean, they're scoring a lot of points these days. And I think if it's a high-scoring game, Pine Bluff will win. But if Grambling's defense, comes to play and it's a low-scoring game, I think Grambling, even though Coach Fobbs has said he's got 3 quarterbacks, he said if you got 3 quarterbacks, that means what? You don't have one. And he said that this week in the coaches' teleconference. Mm-hmm. And he's begging for someone to take that starting job. I thought it would be Hickbotham, but he has struggled. A couple of bad picks last week. He's been pulled a couple of times. And that's been a disappointment for me in terms of how he has played. But Fobbs is looking for someone to take that quarterback job, but their defense is really playing well. And if they can slow down UAPB, I think Grambling has a chance.
Well, Charles and BJ, you mentioned before about in the moment. This is another in the moment for UAPB.
Yeah.
The last time they were in the moment, they got shellacked by a Southern football team that had been inconsistent offensively. Now, with Grambling State, with their quarterback issues and Coach Fobbs begging for somebody to take over the leadership, where does UAPB pass the test this time?
I actually like UAPB in this spot, but I tell you what, I'm hesitant because there's something we've seen Grambling in this spot. Right, we saw them in this spot last year where they dropped early and they had to win out to the Bayou Flat to give themselves a shot. I think we got enough. We got enough information on Grambling and what they've done in the past to let you know that Grambling usually does well in this spot. We don't know how Arkansas Pine Bluff is going to do just yet. And if we go based on the Southern game, not necessarily that good. I want to go Arkansas Pine Bluff, but I would not be shocked to see the G-Men from North Louisiana go and win that game up there in Pine Bluff, Arkansas today.
So you got Grambling State winning?
Yeah, I got Grambling. I got.
What you got, Charles?
Man, this is a tough one for me. Really, I'm gonna be honest. Because I haven't seen. I mean, Grambling's defense is playing really well, and I think they're gonna have to carry the water in this game because offensively, it's still a struggle because they're not getting good quarterback play. But at the same time, UAPB is the second big game, as you mentioned, big moment. And clearly, UAPB's kind of on the outside of the West because they lost to Southern. That's going to come back to bite them because in the head up, obviously Southern would get it because they beat UAPB. I think defense in these conditions, I'm going to go with Grambling. I'm going to go with Grambling. It's going to be a very close game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I'm going to have Grambling winning probably 24-21.
Defense wins championships. UAPB, high explosive offense. Grambling, offensive struggle.
Mm-hmm.
In the moment, UAPB failed their first test, but high scoring offense. I'm gonna go with a clean sweep. My heart says UAPB, but my mind says GSU. They're gonna slow it down. They're gonna make it an ugly contest, if I can use that term, because of their offensive woes. But I think Grambling State comes out and they get it done.
I think UAPB is going to be the team to watch. I mean, clearly, they're playing well and they're getting a lot of attention. They've got a lot of teams' attention. I think they're a year away.
On that note, that's the Southwestern Athletic Conference picks. BJ, your top 5 poll as usual, which comes out on Twitter every Tuesday, but we have the pleasure of having BJ give us that poll every Saturday on the Coles Brown Show. Starting at number 5, BJ.
You have the Jaguars of Southern University. I think, the way that they're able to put, win the Prairie View game. I called the Texas Southern game a week ago. I told you, that game is going to get ugly. It's a spring game type atmosphere, winless opponent. Don't be shocked if Texas Southern is in that ball game. But I think Southern's number 5. At number 4, I have the Wildcats of Bethune-Cookman. They have a huge game. And when I say huge game today at home with South Carolina State coming into Daytona. In the 3 spot, I have the Aggies of North Carolina A&T. They dropped after that big loss to FAMU. In the 2 spot, I have the Braves of Alcorn State. I think the Braves are consistent. They're the class of the SWAC. And the way that they've been gelling despite the injuries, I really like Alcorn. And in the number 1 spot, if you look at the resume, that's what separates FAMU from Alcorn at this particular point. Resume. FAMU is beating Southern. They've beaten nationally ranked North Carolina A&T. They've beaten nationally ranked South Carolina State. So you got 2 nationally ranked teams that you got wins over. You got those wins under your belt. It's hard not to say that they're number 1. They're the number 1 team right now in my poll, and that's the Rattlers of Florida A&M.
BJ, were you on Southern? No, I get the dates confused. What year did you play at Southern?
2003 through 2006.
Oh, well, I don't need to ask you that question. We were kind of going over our Steve McNair moments. 1993, you were. I'm trying to make you older than you are.
Oh, man.
1993, Southern over Alcorn, 47-31, but wow, an electric atmosphere. You have a quick Steve McNair moment?
I saw Steve McNair. I was in I think it was the 4th or the 5th grade. They actually came to Birmingham to play Samford. And Samford does not get a lot of football attention. But on that day, Samford set their school record, which still stands, when Steve McNair and the Braves came to town. And I remember that Steve McNair put on an absolute show. He was must-see TV. And I remember from that point on, watching Steve McNair highlights on ESPN, which was different because at that time, there weren't many 1AA highlights on ESPN. And I remember they handed him the Heisman cover, which I still own. And I just remember that he was larger than life. And just being around Alcorn, just being around the sport, being around the people down on the reservation, man, all of them have nothing but amazing things to say not only about Steve McNair, the football player, but Steve McNair, the man, and just see his brother, the head coach there, and what that McNair family means to Alcorn State. This is one of those things that just makes the SWAC so special.
Well, we're broadcasting live from the campus of Alcorn State University. It looks like I want to say that Alcorn's going to be in all purple today. It looks like it. I saw a purple helmet. They're warming up on the field, purple pants. And
yeah, they got the purple. Yeah,
I think they're gonna be in all purple.
Yeah, probably so.
And it looks like Southern's gonna be in blue pants, white shirts, and the white helmet. Very interesting. The last time we were here again at SWAC football championship, an electric crowd. The end of the game, that feeling, the fireworks going up. You're happy for Coach McNair because I had heard some whispers from the outside looking in. Can he get it done? You know, Hopkins won a conference, title, a SWAC title, but he was able to get it. And looking at McNair as I'm making my exit, watching the fireworks going off, and watching ESPN later, he really seemed satisfied. Because he's not really, to me, an emotional type guy, but you could tell he was satisfied.
Yeah, the most emotion I've seen from him is when we won the division last year on this field, and he was pretty emotional about it, just all the injuries and just dealing with the ups and downs. We had lost a 5 overtime game, I think 6 overtime game to Alabama State, and we were able to bounce back from that. That's about as emotional as he'll get, and he might get a little emotional today if he sticks around for the halftime of the retirement of his brother's number 9 jersey.
Yeah.
And, we'll hear from him. I did a little interview with him just talking about what this means, what if his brother was here, how he would deal with that. So we'll talk. I got that sound, and we'll deal with that at halftime. But he's not a real big rah-rah or emotional guy.
Yeah, I can understand. Well, BJ, you enjoy yourself, and I'm not going to tell you not to party hard. You have to. And we'll talk with you next Saturday. Southern's homecoming next Saturday against Alabama A&M.
Yeah.
Knowing Southern's luck, they'll get the good Alabama A&M team that'll show up. But
that's usually how I look with them.
Yeah, very unpredictable, but boy, still explosive. Thanks a lot, BJ. Appreciate it.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, no problem. Brandon B.J. Jones of HBCU Game Day. Got a few minutes left to wrap up this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. We've given you all of the statistics that we thought were important. The game has to be played. With that being said, Charles, if Alcorn State is victorious today, it'll be because of what?
It'll be because they're able to run the football, run it downhill, and open up the passing game for Felix Harper to be able to sling it all over the place and prevent special teams productivity from Southern University.
Now, and I'm going to try to get him on for a few minutes here quickly because he's the guy that keeps me grounded. He's my best friend, but also he gives it straight, no chaser. And that's the way he gives it to you. But you notice, you said the run game.
Yeah.
I never forget the run game with Alcorn State. They could be throwing for 300 yards a game. I'm still going to look at how they run the football, and they've done that well in this series.
They have.
And I look for the running game to get back to form, if I can use that term, get back to form, but make an appearance again.
Duffy and Waller versus Washington and Ben. Who's going to win that? Who's going to win that matchup? I mean, I think that's, those are Ben and Washington. To me, Washington, as I said in the first hour, is probably the more scarier back to me. I think Ben's going to get some carries to kind of keep things honest, but Washington's kind of the dual threat in the backfield. They'll probably line him up in a slot a couple of times. You could lose him, and he could make some big plays catching the football.
I'm going to point to no predictions, believe it or not, for this game. Just the best team will win. X-Factor Timothy Bedford, 6'4", transfer wide receiver from Texas State, from the state of Louisiana, had a big game against McNeese State, had an injury. Watch for him, that other receiver, because I know they're going to be aware of Jamar Washington and register. I'm predicting this. Bedford, I believe, will be heard from in this game.
And I'll have to say, the Southern University tight ends have really done some damage against Alcorn. I think that's the one thing we haven't talked about. You know, Southern had a tight end who got hurt, was it 2 years ago?
2 years ago. Well, receiver, but
receiver / tight. The tight end at 3rd and short, 3rd and 4. I think, like you said, I think the tight end has given us some problems. Jalen Jones of Prairie View, I think, is a tight end, had, I think, a touchdown catch. So we've had some issues with some tight ends, especially on 2nd and short, 3rd and short. So we'll see how we handle that.
Well, I'd like to do this, Charles. I appreciate all the hospitality, the hard work that you've done in helping me get this broadcast off and run today. I appreciate it, as always, and all the help. I'll turn down your mic, and you'll pass it over to Mr. Elam. And I just want to get his thoughts on this ball game. He'll probably be holding me from getting angry, and I'll probably be holding him from getting angry. But he's even killed, though, in these type of situations. I'm the one that get emotional. How you doing, Mr. Elam?
Doing great. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing fine. I'm ready for some football. All the talking, all the analysis, opinions. It comes down to on that field. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on this football game for Southern University to be able to be successful? What are they going to have to do?
Number one, they have to win in the trenches. They have to minimize turnovers, and they have to be balanced on offense. And if Alcorn run the ball like they did last year when we were here for the championship game, it's going to be a long afternoon. I know Alcorn is transitioning, as we discussed earlier. They're passing more, but I still think it's their running game against Southern is the Achilles heel. So I don't think that's good. I mean, why would you? If I've had success over the years against Dawson Oldham, it's been the running game. I'm going to keep doing that. So Southern has to win at the line of scrimmage on both sides. Offense have to protect whoever's their quarterback, and the running backs we have to have sustained drives, and then at the end of the drive, you have to finish. Now, on defense, that's my side of the ball.
Yes, sir.
If Southern come out with their 3-man line, it's going to be a long afternoon, and going back to Baton Rouge, it's going to be it's going to be a long 2 hours because I'm going to be hot as fish grease.
In other words, like last time at the SWAC championship, we had an interesting conversation driving back 61. That is a long drive, about 2 hours from Baton Rouge, but especially after a loss, you get a chance to talk and dissect. What your thoughts on what should have happened, what could have happened,
right?
And what you're talking about exclusively is rushing 3, dropping 8, back in coverage on certain down and distance situations. I think they're gonna have to mix that up. They're not gonna be able to do that 95 or even 75% of the time. You got to give Harper some different looks, and if he beats you with you doing that, so be it.
I don't like it against the pass, and I don't like it against the run. Because all you have to do, once those linemen get on the linebackers and you block, you control the front 3, you're on the 3rd level. And, you're going to give up a lot of yards. And during the passing, you have no pressure. He could just go, pick the open spot, if they're in a zone, but we'll see. It's a good day for football, nice weather,
Spoken like a true defensive guy. No, weather's always great, even if it's wet. That's good old football weather growing up and what have you. But it's always a pleasure coming to Alcorn State. It's a beautiful campus, scenic view.
Nice fans.
Yeah, nice fans. They're not obnoxious like some other fans I could mention that's in the state, but We'll deal with those Tigers a little bit later in the season. Matter of fact, much later in November. That is very interesting. But should be a good one. Southern University at Alcorn State. Southern University on the field warming up a little bit. Alcorn been warming up a little bit a little earlier. And so in about 2 hours, folks, less than 2 hours, it should be a good old-fashioned football game. At least that's what we hope.
Yeah, fans for both teams are starting to trickle in, and so it's time to play, man. I'm excited, and the Southern and me hope that we win, But we have to play 60 minutes. We can't score a couple of touchdowns, get ahead or whatever, and get all happy and forget about the assignment and the business at hand, man. Play the whole game.
Fast start. Who starts for Southern?
Skelton.
Yeah.
Skelton starts. He goes start. Yeah.
Somehow I might be in the minority. I got people still texting me and saying, Bubba McDaniels. I think you keep him in the same position. If Skelton struggles, you bring him in. He's a good middle relief and a good closer, but you put him in where he's most effective. That's coming off the bench, starting. I agree. You got to go with Skelton, and you're hoping that he gets off to a good start.
Yeah, and it's a different pressure when you start as opposed to coming off the bench.
Yeah.
So I think Skelton start. I hope they've designed some plays for him where he can be successful in the passing game. I think he gives Southern a good chance because he can move outside of the pocket, and Alcorn has trouble over the years with running quarterbacks.
Yeah, you remember, we referenced again, last year's championship game, first drive, Southern goes down and scores. So, yeah, you can score first, but you got to see a sustained effort today, and that's what you're hoping to see with Southern University. Want to thank Charles Edmond once again and Alcorn State University for their hospitality here for the broadcast today. I want to thank Dr. Michael Prince back in Studio A. Dr. Prince, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right.
I know it is, brother. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be all right.
Yeah, and I appreciate your passion and your commentary. It was almost listening to myself, how I would be in that same situation. Much is given, much is expected.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I appreciate Charles' comments. Charles is more of the even keel. Let's look at everything.
Yes.
And then make the decision. You have to appreciate that take.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Learn things from that, because I'm the opposite. Sometimes a quick reaction may not necessarily be the best reaction, but don't forget, it's always passion. I want to thank Brandon B.J. Jones as well and everybody who listened in. You can continue to give your comments after the show is over with on the Carlos Brown Facebook page. I do read them, and I will try to respond. Pray for our return back to Baton Rouge. That's always important after this ball game is over with. And the sun will come up again tomorrow morning. So everyone, enjoy your weekend. Make sure you join me next Saturday at 10 a.m. for another edition of the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Until that time, as always, peace and God bless.